I refuse to make any bones about it. I like Planet of Lana. It wasn't a perfect game, but its style, atmosphere, and delivery of a game and a story via made up language that could have just been Klingon for all its usefulness hit a title that told stories via a look and a nod. The idea that letting you guess what you saw, and if you saw the correct thing, turned from what the hell is that into, oh, I think it's that. Then by the end of the game, you're slowly creating your own narrative from all of the different experiences past. I remember playing the first game and running across a mysterious orb and sitting there for a minute or so wondering to myself if this thing was a threat, a tool, an instrument of the narrative, and then watching it open up slowly and thinking to myself, well, if it fries me to death, I guess I know which one of the goddamn ones it is. Planet of Lana 2 is one of those sequels that understands why the first game worked and then doesn't get caught up taking the typical sequel ideas and trying to friggin' throw everything into it. It's still a 2D hand-painted side-scrolling puzzle platformer where you and your little cat buddy are moving through big quiet spaces, and the game is doing that thing where it tells you more with a look and a sound than most games manage with 15 minutes of dialogue. But the big thing for me is how it treats the player. It gives you tutorials, yes, but it also gives you situations. In Planet of Lana 2, a room may be a hazard. It may be a path that looks obvious until it isn't. And then it basically goes, all right, figure it out. Not in a gotcha kind of way, more like it trusts you to pay attention, to notice the weird object you swam past, to understand that the escort character is doing something in the background to pick up on. And that sentence, that moment of a brief comment about something in an environment may cause you to stop and go, I might need that item. And when it clicks, Planet of Lana 2 feels great. That little moment where you're briefly stumped, then you realize you didn't break anything and you just ended up solving the puzzle. Planet of Lana 2 is packed with that kind of feeling. It's tighter than some games in this genre in certain spots, looser in others, but it keeps that steady sense of discovery running throughout. And that's the reason why I kept wanting to push forward. Speaking of forward, here's my forward. I buy the games, even the devs give me a code, so my cash is on the line just like yours, and that makes me my own sponsor. Me doesn't ask for much other than food and some sleep. If you want to be a sponsor like me, eat well and maybe subscribe and join the Discord. We give out codes to commenters and subscribers all the time, so get to it. Speaking of doing it, Lana 2 doesn't waste any real time getting moving. Planet of Lana 2 continues on the whole post-invasion idea of the original game, but adds in the idea that after a particular amount of time, humans can be accustomed to pretty much anything at all, and that's what happens here. In Lana and Mui's home planet, new technology from the invasion spreads throughout different tribes, each adopting it in their own way, and the world's balance starts to wobble a bit under the weight of greed and fear and opportunism. So basically, it's the modern world. When the people chasing power push too far, it brings the two characters into the journey that pulls us along. All these buried truths about the planet, about your characters, and about your compatriots. It's all together as one overall narrative. What I love is that Planet of Lana 2 continues the original's best trick. It doesn't dump exposition on you. It uses small gestures and pauses and the environment itself to communicate. Sometimes you walk into a room and it's like you've stepped into a sentence mid-thought. A skeleton near a console, a barricade half built, an object placed with a bit of purpose. You're not just seeing stuff as set dressing, you're inferring intent on everything you do notice. Not only because many screens are, in fact, mini puzzles, or many screens are many puzzles, or puzzles are puzzling, which is a lot of puzzle stuff. It's also just that the environment becomes a third character, talking to you in fragments that you end up assembling to move forward. And because the game again has no spoken dialogue in the understandable language sense, it leans into this invented alien language and pure performance. You've got your tone and your timbre. You've got your laughing and whispering and muttering and yelling. The emotional meaning comes through even when the words are nonsense, but you start to pick up on them. That's not by accident. The devs have talked about intentionally building this language approach for the series across all their interviews, and hearing someone shout, "Last night's sex was amazing," is way different than if someone whispers it. Planet of Lana 2 nails that. When you leap into the game, it does give you tutorials, but its real strength is that it presents you a situation and then trusts you to solve it. A lot of the game's best moments come from a 3-layer problem solving. Mostly it's actually 2-layer, but I'll give you 3 here. It's got you, it's got Mui, your cat, and at times a third character you're escorting or accounting for when it comes to space. This layering is what turns a simple room into a satisfying little set of systems. It's not always about spotting the tacit objective like in other games. In fact, sometimes it's reeling you into the realization that the escort character is doing something that might be a subtle hint. My favorite example from my gameplay was an underwater area where I couldn't get Mui across. I found these objects that look like circuit breakers crossed with lobster traps, which sounds as odd and scary as you would think if you're underwater. But what I found out quickly is if you dislodged them underwater, they'd rise to the surface and you could swim around with them. But you couldn't take one back down underwater once it breached the surface because it had become too buoyant. For a moment, I thought I'd possibly actually break the puzzle. Then I realized that there might have been another one I'd passed earlier because the game didn't scream at me to look at it. It expects a decent chance that you'll miss the first part of a puzzle when you come into some places. And then it was allowed for me to connect the dots. Now, that brief moment of confusion snaps into an oh kind of moment and suddenly became more about exploration, not frustration. Mechanically, the sequel also expands everyone's movement with a bit of teamwork, but it adds more agility as well. And you have a tiered interplay with Mui, including the ability for him to take over animals to access places you normally can't get to, interact with devices, flip the logic of a room, generally make traversal like a plan instead of a jog. And then suddenly you're in charge of some black squid that can shoot out ink and block the vision of enemies so you can get past an area. One small design I do adore is when Mui's off screen and you call it, the game doesn't always yank the camera over. Instead, you often see a silhouette indicator showing what it's doing, getting stuck, electrifying a door, or running towards you. Now, that tiny UI decision prevents you from having an experience where you're like, where did I leave my cat? And instead keeps the pacing pretty clear and informative. One thing to consider is yes, this is a 2D scroller at heart that doesn't have delusions of grandeur playing with other means. It's focused on that one particular thing and the three layers of control, context, and cat heavy co op puzzle solving, which means the controls stay fairly simple. You got your sprinting, your ducking, your sliding for time sensitive platforming, and a clean way to command the cat and trigger its special actions. The complexity, again, is going to come from the situations, not from any kind of button bloat. One thing, though, that can frustrate you is the developers have wanted to up the difficulty of some of the puzzles since the original. And yes, that's happened here. And a number of them revolve around two character combinations, which isn't the greatest fun when you have to take into account moving two characters that have different states. So, for example, the cat, even when told to stay in place, is always looking at you for instructions, which is awesome for atmosphere, but it can throw holy hell into the timing of some of the puzzles when you're taking into account your movement and controlling some arcane piece of eldritch equipment in the form of a grumpy electronic lift, as well as timing the cat's movement, which is delayed not only by the controls switching over to the cat with the right bumper, but also its shift from looking at you to turning around and then starting to move. And make no mistake, it's got some vertical leaps, but momentum is not this spindle-legged porker's best friend, which results in a lot of frustrating moments trying to get it playing just right before a quick twitch laser spat out on 9 lives of the cat in some crackerjack timing moment. But for a lot of those particular issues, once I got through them and got to the next spot, there was some unique combination of moving the two characters together that is just really delightful. So it's got some problems here or there, but overall still presents itself quite nicely when it comes to the gameplay. Speaking of presentation, this is still one of Planet of Lana's defining aspects, and I just like this one as much as I like the original. It's got soft pastel colors, hand-painted scenes that look a bit like watercolor pieces assembled into a bit of a diorama or stuck onto the screen and moving. It's not rough, it's tactile on that painted paper brought to life kind of way. The animation remains very good, and there are moments that remind you of older cinematic platforming titles like Flashback, especially when you're climbing ladders, dropping down hard, and using movement and momentum to solve a piece. I will point out that there are some parts where you need to climb or you need to grab onto a ledge where it can be a little bit confusing where you need to stand to particularly do so, which resulted in 1 or 2 deaths. The sequel's environments are also, I would say, broadly in a larger variety. Frozen peaks, deep oceans, forgotten ruins, and nature meets technology kind of vibes throughout, and many places where all of those have their own hidden dangers. My biggest complaint is also comical when you think about it, given how beautiful and portable friendly the game feels and the idea that this is not going to push any video card very hard at all. I was stuck well above 180 on a 4090, and that was with everything maxed. This is a game that practically begs to be played on a handheld device and tuned for performance, yet it offers near nothing beyond broad presets, low, medium, high, and ultra, without the normal granular conveniences that you might expect from a game like this, especially with the idea that, hey, a lot of people are going to want to jump into this on a handheld. And not being able to understand exactly what you might need to mini-max sucks. It's like being handed a library and being told, sure, there's books, but we're just not going to tell you which ones are here. For a modern release, it's actually a little bit baffling. Also, on some of the game's wider shots with slow pans, occasionally there were a stutter here or there. This showed up on 2 PCs. That same problem did. It's not widespread. It doesn't occur on each one, but there were occasional stutters that you should be aware of. I really do wish a game like this had more options, though, because while its frame rate isn't going to suffer on even middle range or low range cards, its style and just genre are going to make it really goddamn desirable to play this on lower end hardware. Speaking of hardware, how does it use the audio systems in your PC or in your console? The score is amazing. It uses the same composer from the original game, and it fits the way the story is told. Music gives weight to these quiet moments, then swells when the world opens up or something shifts emotionally. One of the better scores this year. I just really liked it. It doesn't really go out of its way to be anything different than you would probably expect, but where it hits pretty much perfectly. Love the music here. Voice work, listen, this is quietly excellent because it's all about tone. The alien language is made up, but the performance has enough rhythmic consistency that you start recognizing repeated words like the call for your cat or your friend or people that you meet in a city or town. The emotional beats, almost all of them, lean more towards osmosis, which sells it as a texture, which is like laughing and muttering versus panic versus tenderness. And it creates that illusion that you understand pretty much everything, even if you don't. When it comes to understanding, I did hope that they would be able to nail the understanding of sound design being so important, and they did. Open fields feel airy, caverns have that atmospheric echo, and in many locations, there's a massive wind whipping through caves hard enough to kill you if you misjudge it. And that sound of that wind, paired with how small Lana and Mui are on screen, creates a real sense of actual scale, which is a rare thing for a side scroller other than just moving the screen. Here it does it with the sound effects, which work phenomenally well. But does it all come together? First, didn't really have any bugs with the game other than the animation issues that I talk about with some of the climbing and a little bit of that problem with the momentum of Porkins the cat. Planet Lana 2, though, is that fun in a very specific way. It's fun because it respects a player's ability to notice things, and it gives you a situation and just nails the feeling of the world communicating with you consistently. A glance, an odd background element, a small sound cue, and the way the companion's silhouette hints at what's happening off screen. And the three character, sometimes, but the two character, mostly kind of gameplay here ends up being something that turns a straightforward room into a real complex, but actually somewhat easy to figure out puzzle. You just have to understand how you go about it. Sometimes you'll look at a puzzle and say, okay, I think I know what I need to do. And you probably do. It's the sense of exploration and getting there that rocks and really has a great feeling per screen, which is something that 2D platformers really need to nail, especially ones like this that don't have the speed of, say, Ori or a Sonic. Do you guys know I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, deep sale, or never touch? For a game that took probably around 7 hours, which means, 6 to 8 for a normal gamer, the $20 price tag to me is more than fair if you are a fan, and I would suggest you get this. I really did enjoy it. Playing it does try at all times to entice just the game player specific fan base, though. It doesn't go out of its way to say, hey, if you're not a fan of 2D platformer puzzles after this, you will be. But what it does do is it offers a pretty quick overlap of what's happened in the past game and then jumps you into this one. So if you didn't get a chance to play the past game, you could sort of play this sequel as the first game with just more detailed lore than you might expect. But I think it's well worth the price for the fans. Loved my time with it despite some issues, and really just a great experience. Anyway, that's it for me. If you guys get a chance and you want a great experience, check out the podcast that we got on Fridays. Check out the Patreon and the Discord where we talk about games, stream them, do some inside baseball. We have podcasts almost every other day or every third day in there where we talk about behind the scenes and games. People are streaming titles all the time. We had one of our biggest streams a couple days ago. I think there was like 30 people in there, and there was like at least 10 or 15 streaming various titles like Requiem and others. And expect more reviews from titles you probably expect from me coming in the future. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.